Beneath the Earth's crust, where science said only molten rock could exist, Dr. Ian Mercer followed Gen Access into the impossible. What they found was no cave, but a hidden world, force of light, creatures of myth, and a people who had never left. But paradise does not welcome intruders, and Ian must decide whether to exploit the discovery or protect it from those who would consume it. The descent was wordless at first. Dr. Ian Mercer, an evolutionary biologist with an expression carved from lifelong curiosity, kept his gaze fixed on the Earth's layers as he slid past like pages in a time-worn book. The scaffolded shaft groaned as the industrial lift sank deeper, dust trembling loose from ancient stone, the air turning denser, richer somehow. Around him stood 12 others, mostly armed contractors in matte black armor, with mirrored visors and modified rifles slung across their chests. No names, no insignia, just Gen Access muscle. To the public, Gen Access Pharmaceuticals was known for medical breakthroughs, stem cell regeneration, nanotherapy, biosynthetic limb integration. But behind closed doors, Gen Access was a different beast entirely. With multi-government contracts and DARPA partnerships buried in redacted files, the company had long shifted its focus to fringe science, quantum geology, subatomic matter entanglement, and deep earth exploration. The wormhole wasn't supposed to exist. It had formed during a failed geothermal extraction experiment in the Tibetan Plateau. The shaft drilled too deep and triggered seismic anomalies, but instead of collapse, they found stability. Instead of lava, they found light. Ian had been recruited not for field work, but for theory. His quantum geothermal model, once ridiculed in academia, predicted conditions for sealed subterranean ecosystems created by ancient tectonic pressure and thermal regulation. He had spent years writing about it until Gen Access called, offering funding he couldn't refuse and access he never imagined. He wasn't a corporate man, he was a scientist chasing the last frontier left on Earth. The lift jerked slightly as the shaft narrowed. Ian clutched the railing. The silence between the team remained thick, humming with tension. "You, Mercer?" one of the mercenaries finally asked, voice rough and edged with boredom. Ian nodded. "Yes? So explain something," the man said, gesturing downward. "How are we not gonna melt down there? We're dropping through the planet like it's a theme park ride, and it's just fine?" Ian spoke without turning. "We're not heading into the core. We're entering a biosphere sealed beneath the mantle convergence. There's a mineral shell, primarily ovine and garnet. Around the cavity, it acts like a thermal buffer, stabilizes the heat, traps a breathable atmosphere." The mercenary grunted. "Still doesn't explain the light." Ian allowed a faint smile. "Think of it as geothermal luminance. Cracks in the ceiling. It filters radiant energy from molten layers. Those metal compounds refract it. It's like planetary fiber optics. You get photosynthesis without sunlight." A woman nearby muttered. "So the Earth, it glows from the inside?" "Exactly," Ian said. "And because of the mineral composition, no signals get out. No satellites, no interference. That's why it stays hidden." The lift shuddered. A thick plug of bedrock slid open ahead, groaning on unseen pistons. Air hissed past them, humid and sweet. Then the gateway opened. A subterranean forest sprawled in all directions. Trees 3 stories tall with silver-scaled bark and glowing canopies. Above, a crystalline ceiling shimmered like frozen lightning. A lake steamed gently in the distance. Herds of antlered reptiles stirred in the fields of indigo grass. Birds with 6 wings spiraled overhead. Ian's jaw tensed. "This isn't a cave. It's another world," whispered a voice behind him. But he wasn't listening. Something in the underbrush had moved against the wind, watching, waiting, and it had been waiting for a long time. They called it an expedition, but Ian knew the word had long since lost its meaning. It was a raid disguised as science, an invasion masked by data collection. Gen Access hadn't come to learn, they'd come to claim. It was the 4th day in the hidden Earth. The team had established a rudimentary outpost atop a ridge of basalt overlooking a field of shimmering grasses. Early morning mist clung to the forest floor, lit from below by the ceiling's warm, golden luminescence. It looked like dawn in a world untouched by time. Ian crouched in the tall grass, notebook in hand, eyes wide as a herd of majestic quadrupedal creatures emerged from the brush. They moved with surprising grace, like living boulders, each roughly the size of a bus, armored in rigid, earthly scales. Their most striking feature was the translucent, bioluminescent crest that bloomed from their skulls like crystalline fans. They pulsed faintly, violet, green, and soft blue. Communication through light, not sound. They're herbivores, Ian whispered into his recorder. Ceratopsian analogs. But the crest, it's an evolutionary leap, possibly photosensitive, maybe even emotive. He signaled to the team not to move. We need time, observation, distance. We don't know their behavior patterns yet, but the mercenaries weren't listening. One, Burke, a man who had already raised his rifle. Don't, Ian hissed, stepping forward. We're not here to. The gunshot cracked through the valley like a thunderclap. One of the creatures collapsed, legs buckling under its own massive weight. Its crest flickered wildly, then dimmed. Blood pooled quickly beneath it, thick and blackish red, against the alien soil. Ian rushed forward, fury overtaking fear. You killed it. We don't even know what it is. Burke shrugged, unbothered. Gen Axis wants samples. They didn't specify breathing ones. Containment units were rolled in, sleek silver cases unpacked, like surgical trays. Tubes inserted, blood drawn. Segments of skin were cut before the body was even cold. The scientists said nothing. Some even filmed. Ian stared stunned. This isn't research. This is butchery. But the valley wasn't still. Low vibrations ripped through the ground. Ian looked up, trees shaking. From the shadows emerged the rest of the herd, led by a towering creature nearly twice the size of the fallen one. Its crest shimmered blood red. Across its snout were old scars, long, jagged, brutal. The mate, it had watched him kill. Now it had come to answer. It let out a bellowing roar, a sound so deep it made Ian's bones hum. And then the herd charged. What followed was carnage. Claws racked through armor, screams filled the air, rifles filled in every direction. But bullets ricocheted off thick hides. Men were trampled, equipment crushed. One of the containment pods exploded in flame, lighting the canopy in a sudden inferno. Ian didn't look back, he ran, not from fear, but purpose. He had to get out, had to warn someone. This place wasn't a silent relic. It was alive, and it had been violated. Hours later, soaked in ash and blood, Ian crouched beneath a massive root system, far from the ruined camp. Above him, alien birds circled. The air buzzed with life and judgment. The hidden earth had tolerated their presence. Now, they had decided to fight back. Ian had no sense of time anymore. Since the massacre at the Valley Ridge, he had wandered blindly through the subterranean wilds, driven by survival and haunted by screams. His clothes were torn, soaked in sweat and soot. Food was a daily gamble. Strange fruits that stung his tongue, roots that oozed bitter sap. The occasional insect large enough to make his stomach twist. He drank from winding rivers glowing with bioluminescent algae, and collapsed each night beneath moss-covered boulders, where reptilian shadows slithered just out of reach. But despair never hit all at once. It crept in, quietly, like the humidity settling behind his ribs, until he found the cave. It was hidden behind a curtain of ivy, thick and wet with condensation. The entrance yawned like a mouth, jagged and dark. Ian had only entered it to escape the pounding rain, the storm that echoed the cavernous canopy like drums of some primal god. The first thing he noticed was a smell, not decay, but dust and clay. Old earth, untouched for centuries. His headlamp flickered to life, cutting through the black. And then he saw them. Paintings, hundreds of them. They covered the walls in overlapping layers, crude yet strikingly detailed. Charcoal and mineral pigments depicted what could only be described as humans. Thin, broad-shouldered figures, walking beside massive reptiles. Ceratopsians, raptors, even towering sauropods. Some panels showed herds being directed by humans wielding staffs. Others depicted them riding bareback, guiding the creatures with open palms, ropes braided with feathers. But most striking of all was the imagery of reverence. Humans gathered in circles around great beasts, heads bowed, worship, ceremony, partnership. Ian stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. This wasn't a lost world. It was a shared one. Further in, he found stone-carved tools stacked in makeshift alcoves. Woven garments, now crumbled and brittle, rested beneath layers of dust. And at the far end of the cavern stood a shrine, carved directly into the wall. A raptor's head, stylized with concentric circles radiating from its mouth like sunbeams. Offerings still remained at its base. Dried leaves, bones, what looked like hardened berries or seeds. They weren't remnants, Ian whispered. They were lives. He turned back to the wall, to the large mural he hadn't noticed before. This one showed progression, humans clustered in ritual, then building great bonfires, then standing around a shaft of light, descending from above. A staircase, or tunnel, cut into stone, glowed with rays of gold. The final scene showed figures ascending into the light, their arms raised as if in triumph or farewell. Migration. Ian stepped closer, running his fingers along the ridges of the painting. The implications gnawed at his mind. What if these people had left this world behind? What are the myths of Eden, of golden ages of sky-falling deities, or distortions of this? He sat against the wall, mind racing. His entire career had been built on tracing humanity's genetic roots through evolution. But what if their cultural origins didn't start on the surface? What if the hidden earth wasn't just an anomaly? What if it was home? Somewhere, deep in the cavern's silence, Ian felt the tremor of possibility. Not fear, but awe. Because this was no longer just about survival or escape. It was about returning to a truth the surface world had forgotten. By the time Ian reached the rift site, his body was a map of bruises, dirt, and exhaustion. His boots were torn, soaked from endless rivers and forest bogs. Hunger gnawed at his gut, but his mind, sharp as ever, was singular in purpose. Get back to the gateway, get back to the only tether to a world that might still believe him. He had followed memory and instinct to the labyrinth wilderness, retracing the coordinates he had memorized during briefings. But when he emerged onto the ridge where the base camp once stood, something felt off. The canopy had been torn open, the scaffolded lift was still there, half sunk into the rock, its control panel blinking softly, miraculously powered, but the outpost itself, gone, no voices, no bodies, just scattered gear, shattered crates, and blackened soil where fire devoured tents and tech. Ian stepped carefully, scanning the wreckage. Not a single corpse, not a single blood trail. It was as if they had vanished. Then, a roar, the kind that made the bones in his spine ring. He turned slowly, heart thundering, every instinct screaming. And there, it stood. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, 20 feet tall, scarves carved across its snout and neck. One eye clouded white, the other sharp and amber bright. Its breath fogged the air in front of it. Saliva dripped from dagger-sized teeth. It was prehistoric judgment, given form. Ian froze. There was no tree to climb, no cave to dive into, nowhere to run. He swallowed, willing himself not to tremble. And then, music, not from speakers, not from memory. A low harmonic chant floated across the valley like mist. It rose and fell in rhythm, ancient, yet melodic. From the tree line, they appeared. The natives, dozens of them, barefoot and calm, their skin marked in ritual paints and tattoos, cloaked in garments woven from feathers, bark, and scaled hides. Some carried spears tipped in obsidian, others bore nothing but open palms and open eyes. Their chant grew stronger, layered, beautiful. The T-Rex cocked its head, its muscles relaxed, the snarl faded from its throat, and then, with a grumble, it turned, slowly, and lumbered away into the trees. Ian collapsed to his knees, gasping. The natives approached without fear. They surrounded him, eyes soft, curious. One of them, a woman with copper-streaked braids and a carved bone necklace, stepped forward. She examined his face and pointed to his chest, then to the earth. Her expression was calm, reverent. Ian understood the gesture. You are not from here, but you respect what is. They led him to the rift platform, still humming with dormant power. As the chanting faded into wind, one of the elders approached the console. Without hesitation, he pressed his palm to the control surface. Symbols lit up, older than any Ian had ever seen, etched into radiant script. The gateway shimmered. Ian looked up one last time at the stone ceiling above him, the jungle-lit sky, the glowing flora. This world, ancient, primal, wiser than anyone knew, had not only survived humanity's presence, it had judged it, and judged him worthy. He stepped through the portal. Light swallowed him whole. The headlines lasted less than a week. Geological collapse traps Gen Axe's expedition. All personnel presumed dead after experimental drilling mishap. Search halted due to unsafe conditions below mantle. The official story was sealed in bureaucratic stone. Gen Axis issued condolences, pledged future safety reforms, and quietly moved on to the next hidden venture. There were no memorials, no investigations, only silence. But Ian Mercer was not dead. He didn't return to academia. There would be no press conference, no best-selling book tour, Ian vanished into the folds of the world, running a quiet cabin in Patagonia, far from cities and satellites, where the sky was clear and the air was clean, but he hadn't come back empty-handed. In the candlelit room of the isolated retreat, stacks of leather-bound journals filled the shelves, hand-drawn sketches of antlered creatures, diagrams of glowing mosses, transcriptions of chants phonetically recorded from memory. He drew maps of the hidden world serene from above, marking river systems, animal migrations, sacred sites. Every symbol, every wall carving was reconstructed in painstaking detail. But there were no coordinates. He had never marked where the rift had been. Some truths, he realized, weren't meant to be found again. He shared only pieces, sending anonymous packets of data to researchers he trusted. Paleobotanists received samples of spore residue he had hidden in the folds of his clothing. Linguists received cave etchings. Geologists received soil cores unlike anything above. None of it was traceable. All of it was real. He told no one the full story because the deeper truth wasn't about proving anything. It was about protecting it. He had seen something sacred, a world not ruled by man, but cohabited with care. Creatures that should have vanished in fire or ice, and instead evolved in isolation, symbiotic, sentient, soulful, and alongside them, humans who had never left the cradle of balance, people who never built walls, who never learned conquest. That place, hidden earth, was not a resource, it was a reminder. At night, Ian would sit beneath the stars and stare, not up, but down through the soil and stone and time. He could still feel it sometimes, the hum beneath his feet, like the slow, patient heartbeat of something eternal. He knew others would one day try again. Greed always returned, but the rift was no longer stable. The natives had seen to that, and Ian, he would never guide another soul to that gate. He made a vow, not of silence for secrecy's sake, but for respect. The surface had forgotten harmony, forgotten reverence, forgotten that life was not a ladder, but a web, intricate, ancient, unbreakable. So he wrote, not for fame, not for science, but for memory. One day, maybe humanity will be ready again, but until then, the gateway would stay closed, and he'll keep the echo of Earth safe with him.